Forget boring recalls, these cars were so wild they got censored. We're talking engines that set themselves on fire, muscle cars banned in California, and even a police car Chevy refused to sell to the public. Buckle up, because we're diving into 10 American rides that were silenced, scandalized, or flat out banned from the road. Number 10, 1971 Chevrolet Corvette ZR2, the Caged Beast. If you thought the Corvette was already America's supercar, wait until you hear about the ZR2. This wasn't just a Corvette with a big motor. It was a hand-built monster designed for serious racers. Under the hood was the legendary 454 cubic inch LS6 big block, rated at 425 horsepower on paper, but rumored to be closer to 500 in reality. Chevy paired it with heavy-duty brakes, upgraded suspension, and a reinforced cooling system. Basically, it was a street-legal race car. Except, it really wasn't. The ZR2 cost nearly double a base Corvette, and more importantly, it landed right as emissions laws and insurance rates were crushing big block performance cars. Chevrolet quietly pulled the plug after building just 12 of them. That's right, 12 cars. The ZR2 became so rare that even hardcore Corvette fans sometimes forget it exists. Why was it banned? Because regulations and insurance companies made it impossible for Chevy to keep selling a car this extreme. Today, if one comes up at auction, it's $1 million unicorn, proof that sometimes the rarest banned cars weren't recalled. They were strangled before they even hit the showroom floor. Number 9, 1984 Pontiac Fiero, the Fiero. The Pontiac Fiero was supposed to be GM's cool, affordable sports car for the masses. A mid-engine two-seater, it looked futuristic, it looked fun, and it looked like America's answer to the affordable Ferrari. But then owners realized their Fieros had one extra feature: spontaneous combustion. The problem was GM's Iron Duke engine. Stuffed into the tight mid-engine bay, it burned oil like crazy. Drivers would think everything was fine, then suddenly a connecting rod would punch through the block, spraying hot oil onto the exhaust manifold. And just like that, instant bonfire in the driveway. At least 260 Fieros went up in flames, and the media had a field day calling it the Fiero. By 1988, GM had recalled more than 125,000 of them, redesigned parts, and begged owners to check their oil every time they filled the tank. Too little, too late. The Fiero's reputation never recovered, insurance rates skyrocketed, resale values tanked, and people stopped trusting it. Ironically, by the late 80s, Pontiac had fixed all the problems and turned it into a surprisingly good sports car, but nobody cared. The damage was done. Today, early 84 models are rare, mostly because, well, a lot of them burned down. Number 8, 1971 Ford Torino Cobra 429 Super Cobra Jet. The 1971 Torino Cobra was Ford's street brawler, a muscle car built to bully the quarter mile. And with the optional 429 Super Cobra Jet, it did exactly that. On paper, Ford rated it at 370 horsepower. In reality, it was more like 425 plus. 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds. The quarter mile in the 13s. This was a factory car that could line up at the drag strip and humiliate almost anything short of a purpose-built racer. So why did it disappear after just 1 year? Because the world around it changed overnight. By 1971, emissions laws were tightening, insurance premiums were skyrocketing, and gas prices were climbing. California in particular wasn't having it. The 429 was too dirty, too thirsty, and way too powerful. The result? The Cobra Jet was legislated into extinction. By 1972, the Torino was just another sporty car with stripes and vinyl trim. The raw muscle was gone. Today, surviving 429 Cobras are collector gold. They represent the exact moment when America's muscle car dream slammed into the brick wall of regulation. Number 7, 1975 Ford Country Squire 460 V8 wagon. If you think the family wagon was boring, think again. The Ford Country Squire wasn't just a suburban people mover, it was a 9-passenger hot rod if you checked the box for the massive 460 cubic inch V8. But in 1975, California banned it. Why? Emissions. The big 460 couldn't pass the state's stricter smog rules. Ford could have re-engineered it, but it wasn't worth the cost for a wagon that already guzzled gas like crazy. For California families, it meant no more effortless highway passing, no more trailer towing grunt. Buyers were furious. Some even crossed state lines to secretly buy 460 equipped wagons and bring them back home. Others just gave up and settled for weaker engines that left the massive Squire struggling on hills. Today, a 75 Country Squire with the 460 is a collector oddity, especially outside California, proof that even family cars weren't safe when regulators came knocking. Number 6, 1968 Chevrolet Camaro Z28 Cross Ram. The Camaro Z28 was Chevrolet's precision weapon for the Trans Am racing series, but in 1968, Chevy decided to turn the volume up with the insane cross-ram intake system. Picture this: dual 4-barrel carbs mounted sideways, intake runners crisscrossing the engine bay like spaghetti, and a system so wild it required you to cut holes in the hood just to make it fit. On the track, it added 40 horsepower, making the 302 scream like a banshee at 7,000 RPM. On the street, it was borderline undrivable. The Cross-Ram bogged in traffic, guzzled fuel, violated idle emissions rules, and was so loud it literally broke noise laws in some states. Chevrolet even stamped a warning for off-highway use only. By 1969, regulators pushed it out of existence. Only about 200 cars ever got the setup. Today, a real Z28 with factory cross ram is worth a fortune. Not just because it's rare, but because it represents a time when engineers cared more about beating Mustangs on Sunday than keeping regulators happy on Monday. Number 5, 1969 Dodge Charger RT Hemi. The Charger RT with the 426 Hemi was one of the most legendary muscle cars ever built. But here's the twist: it wasn't banned by the government, it was banned by your insurance company. By 1969, insurers realized teenagers were buying 425 horsepower monsters, wrecking them, and costing companies millions. Their solution: make Hemi cars practically uninsurable. Premiums were so astronomical that unless you were rich or willing to commit insurance fraud by lying about the engine, you couldn't drive one. This economic ban was devastating. Sales plummeted, and most buyers went for cheaper 383 or 440 powered Chargers instead. The Hemi became a rare unicorn, and today that rarity has made them million-dollar collectibles, thanks in part to Hollywood. From the Dukes of Hazzard to Fast and Furious, the Charger Hemi cemented itself as the poster child of forbidden muscle. Number 4, 1979 Pontiac Trans Am 400, California ban. By 1979, the Pontiac Trans Am was one of the last muscle cars standing. With its shaker hood, screaming chicken decal, and legendary 400 cubic inch V8, it looked and sounded like pure rebellion. But if you lived in California, tough luck. State regulators banned the 400 outright. Instead, you got the weaker Oldsmobile 403 paired only with an automatic transmission. No 4-speed manual, no real muscle, just the looks. Enthusiasts were outraged. Some snuck in 49 state cars, others swapped engines after purchase. But officially, California buyers were stuck with neutered Trans Ams. The real kicker: Pontiac had hand-built a small stash of 400s just for 1979, making them the last of their kind. Once they were gone, that was it. No more big block Pontiacs ever again. Today, a 79 Trans Am with the 404 speed is a collector holy grail, especially since California never got a single one. Number 3, 1973 Oldsmobile 442 W30 Forbidden Sedan. The Oldsmobile 442 was supposed to be a coupe, but in 1973, a few rogue dealers decided to get sneaky. They stuffed the high-compression W3455 V8 into Cutlass sedans and sold them as undercover muscle cars. The problem? GM never certified that combo. Federal rules required every engine body style mix to be tested for emissions and safety. These sedans weren't certified for anything, which meant technically they were illegal. When GM found out, they cracked down hard. Dealers were threatened with losing their licenses, and the practice was shut down. Experts believe fewer than 25 were ever built, making them insanely rare today. Imagine being the dad in 73 with a family car that secretly outran Corvettes. That's what these outlaw sedans were, a true forbidden fruit of the muscle era. Number 2, 1977 Chevrolet Caprice 9C1 Police Package. Not every banned car was sold to the public. Some were never allowed to be. Case in point, the 1977 Chevrolet Caprice 9C1 Police Package. On the outside, it looked like a boring full-size sedan, but under the hood, it was hiding Corvette DNA, high-output V8 engines, heavy-duty suspension, police-spec brakes, and speedometers that read up to 140 miles per hour. These were muscle cars in disguise, but you couldn't buy one. Why? Because they didn't meet emissions certification for civilians. They were strictly for law enforcement. GM didn't want the liability of selling pursuit-capable sedans to the public, so they kept them under wraps. Officers who drove them said they were the last real muscle cars they ever used on duty. Civilians? They had to drool from afar. Today, original Caprice 9C1s are almost extinct, but they remain one of the most fascinating, forbidden factory hot rods ever built. Number 1, 1978 Plymouth Volare Super Coupe. Finally, our number 1 banned car, the forgotten Plymouth Volare Super Coupe. On paper, the Volare was just a compact commuter, but in 1978, Chrysler went rogue and built a special edition loaded with police-spec hardware. Under the hood, a 360 cubic inch V8 making nearly 200 horsepower, serious numbers for the smog-choked late 70s. Add in heavy-duty suspension, fat tires, and aggressive styling, and suddenly the Volare was a sleeper muscle car. The problem? California said nope. The engine failed emission certification, which meant the Super Coupe was banned from one of America's biggest markets. Combine that with Chrysler's financial meltdown, and the car vanished after just 1 year. Only about 500 were ever made. Today they're almost mythical, rare, odd, and remembered mostly by Mopar diehards. The Volare Super Coupe is the perfect symbol of the muscle era's last gasp, bold, brash, and killed by regulations before anyone even noticed it existed.